Thank you all, and welcome again from me. I'm Tonya Wolford, Deputy for Research in the District. I'm going to give you a brief overview of research in the school district. It's interesting because I think I interact with a lot of you individually on your individual projects or in your content areas, but I just want to give you an idea of the whole landscape of research in the district. And then I'll talk about some logistics related to the book and just the rest of the day. So research in the district really falls into four general buckets. We have internal research projects. We contract out with external evaluators or researchers. We have research partnerships, and we have the research review process that encompasses a lot of sub-buckets. Goals of research in the district in general are to evaluate interventions and programs. We have a strong focus and a strong need for formative evaluation in the district, and that's what we end up doing a lot in our internal research, but many of the external research projects have a formative focus as well. There's also outcome evaluations and outcome research. In many cases, we're testing interventions, or you all are testing interventions as well and looking at their impact. We spend a lot of time also just identifying areas of need or success in terms of mining data and research projects in that area. One aspect that we're very excited about is borrowing from behavioral economics. So we're moving into the area of sort of nudge behavior research where we're trying to influence behavior. And you'll hear more about that project this afternoon. The types of research that we have randomized controlled trials. It's always interesting because people, if they're trying to pitch a research project or if they're interested, if they want to know if we're interested in something, they'll talk about it and talk about the content area, and then they'll say, but we need to randomize, as if it's something that we don't necessarily do. But we have many randomized controlled trials going on in the district, quasi-experimental, correlational, descriptive, and a lot of survey work. In general, we're very heavily focused on quantitative and mixed method. So we often try to pull in qualitative when time or resources allow, and that's always an issue in terms of doing research. I'm just going to run through some of the internal research that we're doing that's grant funded. And again, you're going to see and hear more about these in the afternoon because they're represented during the poster sessions or in the afternoon panels. We're evaluating the Eat Right Now nutrition program that's funded by the Department of Agriculture, Project Arrest out of the Centers for Disease Control. We're looking into the city year expansion to 11 schools this year, and that's funded by William Penn. A long-going evaluation that's been in office for over 5 years, maybe 7 to 8 years, is the Educating Children and Youth Experiencing Homelessness, funded through McKinney-Vento. We're looking at the career and technical ed expansion, and also the implementation of the Pennsylvania Educator Effectiveness System. In addition to those externally funded projects, we then just have our internal research projects that are not necessarily funded. And this list isn't exclusive, it's just to give you an idea. So we have staff looking at the Renaissance Schools Initiative, college and career readiness programming, educational programming for our English language learners, system-wide climate, implementation of the Student Code of Conduct, and then our district-wide parent, student, and teacher surveys. In the past, we've actually contracted with more external evaluators, and that's heavily dependent on the grant project that we're doing and the requirements for the grant. And right now, we actually have two external evaluations going on with Metis Associates. Gear Up, which you'll hear about in the afternoon, and the Math and Science Partnerships is also being evaluated by Metis. The next category is research partnerships, and these are distinguished from the other research because they're primarily involving external entities or organizations, but they demand a good amount of staff time internally. So we have dedicated staff working on these particular projects. The University of Wisconsin I3 to implement the Families and Schools Together program, and the external evaluator is here, and you'll hear about that in the poster session. The report card study pilot that we're working with Harvard on, we're very excited about that, and that's represented in the concurrent sessions. We recently submitted a proposal to IES for a partnership and collaboration focused on problems of practice policy grant, and we actually just found out that we received it, and that's with Andy Porter and Laura DeSimone, so we're excited about that one. I have to give a shout out for that project. With the city and with University of Pennsylvania, we've also engaged in the multi-site study of the educational well-being of children in assisted housing. And finally, we have a new project that we're working with the Center for Policy Research on, and that's to implement teacher professional development funded by NSF. And we're just getting going on recruiting for that project. So that seems like a lot, doesn't it? I haven't even gotten to the research review section, which is actually where I think the bulk of the research in the district comes through our research review. This includes program evaluations, just general externally initiated research, and graduate dissertations. And I have on this slide to try to quantify for you, in addition to what I was speaking about earlier, this is a reflection of basically the past 7 years. We've only started capturing information about research review in a database in the past 5 years, so a little bit of this, for a little bit of the data I'm unsure, but there have been approximately 433 research proposals accepted in the last 7 years, and they're from hundreds of organizations, or about 135 organizations. But here you can see these are the 14 organizations that had 221 of those proposals. So it's a very small group of people, and as you can see, University of Pennsylvania is at the top with 69. Penn Graduate School of Education out of University of Pennsylvania is definitely the most prolific research unit. Temple University has also had a lot, and then Research for Action is the third. The remaining projects that aren't reflected here, which is almost half of the total, still hundreds, they came from an additional 120 universities, organizations, or government agencies. The topics that have been looked at, this is quantifying, and the categories are not necessarily mutually exclusive, but almost half of the studies have dealt with just 10 broad categories. And as you can see, nutrition, health, and physical education has been the most common, and that's included studies on HIV prevention, vision, nutrition education, and programming to encourage physical activity. And I want to say here that it's not necessarily research to study what people do. In most of these cases, it's been resources and programming that has been brought to the district. The second most common is behavioral health, and then college and career readiness, and we have a number of ongoing studies in those areas. In thinking about these topics and the way that the conference is organized, Dr. Haidt didn't mention it, but actually the action plan is reproduced in the briefing. I call it a briefing book. It's not brief, in the book. So we're looking to align our research to action plan strategies. So if you think about the top 3 here in terms of topics, the majority of these fall under strategy 1, which is improving learning for all students. If we look at the posters and presentations today at the conference and the areas that they fall in, you'll see that again, improving student learning is the most common. So there are 42 posters or presentations today that you'll be able to see later that are dealing with improving student learning. There are 10 on becoming a parent and family-centered organization, 4 on developing a system of excellent schools, 3 on becoming an innovative and accountable organization, 3 on identifying and developing exceptional committed people, and just 1 on achieving and sustaining financial balance. So where does this lead us, or where are we going? I think as you go around today and think about the material that you're seeing and the presentations, and think about the action plans and think about the strategies, as Dr. Haidt was pointing out, we really need support and want research to be aligned and helpful to the action plan that has been laid out. And as you can see, there's sort of a imbalance in terms of where the research is and where some of the potential needs are. So keep that in mind. And yes, so looking forward, we do want evidence that contributes to fact-based decision-making in the district and that's aligned to the action plan strategies and actions. So I ask you, as you're thinking about research, if you can just ask yourself 2 questions. How will this research help advance the district's action plan? And will findings from this research help improve the educational experience and outcomes for children in Philadelphia? And with that, thank you. And you'll get a lot more of this. This is sort of foreshadowing or setting the tone for the later, the afternoon sessions. So I'm going to move on to logistics.